going to talk to you about multiplying and dividing rational expressions. And rational numbers or expressions are just things that can be expressed as a fraction. Okay, so a lot of us get a little scared when we hear the word fraction, but it's no big deal. We're going to work our way through it, and you'll be better because of it. All right, so let's start. Let's say I have something like 7x squared over 3 times 9 over 14x. When you multiply fractions, it's important to remember that you can multiply straight across, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to and I'm going to leave them chunked up like this just for a minute because it may be beneficial to me before I actually multiply the numbers, but I do want to show you that really what happens, and I'm going to put just out of good math manners, I'm going to put the constants in front, is I literally just go straight across here, multiplying. Okay, so now what happens is we can kind of start to simplify this, if you will, the fraction here. If you know the canceling out technique, it's a really easy technique. We can look at this as, because I know 7 and 14 are factors of each other, I'll put those as a fraction here. 9 and 3 are also factors of one another, and then I have the x squared and the x, so I'm kind of chunking it out here. 7 over 14 reduces to 1/2. 9 over 3 reduces to 3 over 1, and x squared divided by x reduces to x over 1, and you can think about that as x times x over x, so one of them would cancel. So now again, straight across, and I have 3x over 2. Pretty easy as we go through there. However, when we talk about rational expressions, we can really start to get complex with our expressions here. So let me show you exactly what I'm talking about here. Maybe I have 4x minus 4x squared over x squared plus 2x minus 3. And to that, I'm going to multiply x squared plus x minus 6 over 4x. So my advice to you, when you see some that look like this, is what you really want to do is factor any and everything you can as a first step all the time. Everything gets factored. So as I look here, remember the first step in factoring is checking for a GCF. As I look at this one, I see that I can take out a 4x. And what's left is 1 minus x. And on the bottom here, and I'm going to come off to the side. Okay, so I'm going to come off to the side here, and I'm going to factor this trinomial that's on the bottom. And just as a review from Algebra 1, what we're going to do is we are going to multiply the first term and the last term together. We get negative 3x squared. And so what I'm looking for two things that multiply to negative 3x squared, but they have to add to positive 2x. They add up to what's in the middle. So I hope you can figure out that those two things are 3x and negative 1x. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rewrite this 2x as 3x minus 1x. And then I've got the negative 3 here. So really, I'm just writing 2x a different way. I haven't done anything fancy yet. And now what I want to do is I want to look at the first two terms, and I want to take the GCF out there. And that GCF is x. So I have x plus 3 left. Always keep this middle sign. So what I'm really factoring out is a negative 1 out of these two because they don't have a GCF. And I'm left with x, and again, if I factor a negative 1 out, then negative 3 divided by negative 1 would be positive. And then what I want to do is factor out the whole binomial here, and I do that by writing it. And then what's left is the x and the minus 1. And now it's factored. So this factors as x plus 3, x minus 1. And again here, and I'll do this in a different color so you can see the difference here. Let's use a pink. X squared. Let's see where I'm going to write it here. X squared plus x minus 6. Again, I want it to multiply to negative 6x squared, but add to 1x. So I think I will write that as positive 3x and negative 2x. Again, those still simplify back to x. GCF of these two would be x. Class. And then if I take a negative 2 out of these two, I have x plus 3. Again, I factor out the x plus 3. And I'm left with the x minus 2. So this is the numerator here. And then, x minus 2. And then I have the 4x on the bottom. So because we know when we multiply fractions, we multiply straight across. I'm just going to make this a big multiply problem, and I'm going to start canceling out things that I see in the top and the bottom. So the x plus 3's will cancel. The 4x's will cancel. So if I rewrite this as 1 minus x, x minus 2 over x minus 1, you probably noticed a funny relationship here between these two terms. What you can do is you can factor out, if you rewrote 1 minus x as negative x plus 1, you can kind of see that these two just have opposite signs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor a negative 1 out of these to leave me with negative 1 times x minus 1. And so now I have negative 1 times x minus 1. That x minus 2 is still top. X minus 1 in the bottom. Now these x minus 1's can cancel, and I'm left with negative 1 times x minus 2. A quick note about the division. The division, if you can do the multiplication, you can do the division. The difference here is if I took that same problem that I had, which was 4x minus 4x squared over x squared plus 2x minus 3, and I changed this to division instead of multiply. So I have the only thing that I'm going to do differently here is I'm going to change this sign to multiplication, and I'm going to flip the second fraction, because division, dividing by a fraction, is the same thing as multiplying by its reciprocal. And so now what I can do is pick up all the steps that I did before. Pick up all the steps that I did before, which is factor and simplify, canceling out top and bottom.